Hey everyone, and welcome to Fit Talk Fridays. Today we're going to be talking about how can I make results like this person. And when I say how do I make results like this person, I'm talking about something that we've all done from time to time, which is comparing to other people. We've all seen on Instagram or Facebook, YouTube, these various influencers, or what we call in the fitness world the fitfluencers, right? And we see these people that are in incredible shape. We see this on social media, or even before social media. We see these on magazine covers, Men's Health, Women's Health, various magazines that you see that portray an image that's being sold to us of what health and good health looks like and what fitness looks like. And we've all asked ourselves from time to time, how do I look like that person? Like, how can I be as fit as that person? What gym routine do I need? What diet or exercise regimen should I be following? What foods should I eat? Should I do cardio twice a week? Should I not do cardio at all anymore? I heard that's bad for muscle building. It burns muscle. Should I sleep longer? Should I do fasted cardio? Like we all have these questions for the end result. How can I look like that person? And I want to start by saying that the entire premise of this, of how can I make results like somebody else, the entire premise of that is flawed. And what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is there's a good quote that everyone should look up and at least hear from time to time, which is comparison is the thief of joy. And comparison being the thief of joy, meaning there's always going to be somebody better. There's always someone that's in better shape. There's always somebody that's going to look better. And there's a various number of reasons why that's going to be the case. And we'll talk through some of those reasons on this episode. But I want you to know that you're not them, right? Like, you're not that person. So you don't have the same experiences. You haven't been training the same amount of time. You haven't been training the same way as that person, which we can talk through how you can optimize your own workouts or your own nutrition plan to try to look like that person. But at the end of the day, you're not ever going to be that person. So there's going to be various reasons why you may never look like that person. That may be a various number of things such as genetics, things that are outside of your control. It may be, again, the experience. You haven't trained as long as that person, so you haven't been able to diet down and get as lean. You haven't been able to build as much muscle as that person is now maintaining in a more natural state. I want you to know you shouldn't start with this premise of how do I look like that person, because comparison is the thief of joy, and we should never compare to other people. We don't have the same experience as them. We don't have the same genetics. We don't have the same background. For all you know, that person has been training for decades, and you've been training for a few months. For all you know, that person is taking drugs. That's something we'll talk about in terms of steroids and performance-enhancing drugs. A lot of these people that make their money off of fitness they're incentivized to do that. They're incentivized to take performance-enhancing drugs in order to maintain an image so that they can continue to sell this idea to you. And then the genetic component. So you may just not have the same genetics as that person. That doesn't mean that you can't build the same amount of muscle mass, or you can't get lean and get fit, get more tan, get better lighting, for getting that type of physique or the aura of having that physique. Those things are all possible, but it's important to keep in mind that we don't want to compare to other people. We only want to compare to who we are and who we were yesterday versus where we are today. That's the only benchmark that matters. Like, that you can only compare to you. Like, you have all the experiences you have. You don't have the experiences they have. So I want to start by saying that premise is flawed, and we should not seek to try to look like somebody else. We should just seek to be our best selves. So another thing I want to talk through is the whole premise, like everything that we see on social media with these fitfluencers or wherever you're seeing these images of this person that's in shape, whether it be YouTube, right? The six-pack shortcuts was a popular one for a long time. There's a lot of these influencers that are out there that have these ideal physiques that you see. It's important to know that that's not necessarily healthy. Like, what you see on magazine covers is not necessarily the epitome of good health. Like being that lean for that long is not necessarily healthy. What you're seeing on magazine covers or in Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, that is not what good health symbolizes. Like, again, we don't know if those guys are actually healthy. There's a number of bodybuilders in the space that I personally follow who have even died over the years from, various things, steroids or whatever it was. And on the outside, it looked like they were in great health. Like they were in good shape. They had a lot of muscle mass. They were fit. But those people were not underlyingly healthy. They might have looked healthy. They might have been strong and had muscle and been in shape, but those are not good benchmarks for health. I think better benchmarks for health are like your blood work, your cholesterol, monitoring for diabetes, making sure your blood sugar is in order. Having a healthy amount of body fat is healthy. I don't mean that you should have 5% body fat. That's not good for you. Maintaining that is really hard. And if you've ever talked to an athlete or a bodybuilder that's maintained a very, very low level of body fat, you'll actually learn that that is really not that healthy. It's actually really hard to maintain it, and it starts to create all kinds of problems, whether it be in terms of libido, whether it be in terms of just overall health. Your body's ability to maintain that level of lean, it's very, very, very difficult. And if you think biologically, we're actually supposed to maintain a certain amount of body fat as men and women, because it's a survival thing, right? If you don't have food, you need to be able to have energy, and that body fat is stored as surplus energy for us. If you're a woman, it's in terms of reproduction. You need to have a certain amount of healthy body fat for reproduction. And it's the same thing with eating fats in your diet. A lot of times people will try to sell you on the premise of like, oh, to lose fat, don't eat fat. Well, fat maintains organ tissue. It maintains healthy hair, healthy skin. So we need to really understand like what actually is healthy, because what you're being sold is not actually healthy. When you're seeing these like extremely muscular, as a guy, right, extremely like muscular and fit, athletic guys that are really, really lean and really low body fat, that's actually not healthy. And it really is incredibly hard to maintain. Some people have the genetics to do it. Most people do not. And again, a lot of those guys are doing performance-enhancing drugs in order to maintain that image, to keep selling you on some routine or some product that's going to magically get you there. It's not. So it's important to know that and to really take note of that. And I want to talk through the component a little bit here in terms of drugs, right? And performance-enhancing drugs. And we see this a lot in Hollywood. You'll have these actors who get in incredible shape in a matter of a couple of months, sometimes even a couple of weeks for performing on a set. And they're trying to fill this role, right? They're going to play some villain. They need to bulk up, or they need to get really lean and really, ripped and muscular. Keep in mind, it's not healthy, but also a lot of those guys are doing drugs, performance-enhancing drugs, to play that part in that role. So when you think, how do I look like that person? You need to keep all these things in mind. Is it actually healthy? Like the underlying premise of this goal that I have in my head, if I want to look like that person, is that actually what healthy is? Is that what I want to tie to my definition of good health? And then keep in mind all the things that you don't see in the day-to-day. Are they maybe on steroids, performance-enhancing drugs? Like, how long are they actually able to maintain this? And I've noticed for a lot of these guys, they drop off over time. Like, you'll see these like claim-to-fame fitness athletes or fitness influencers, and they're around for a couple of years, and then they're gone. And I don't necessarily mean gone, like gone from earth, but I mean a lot of these guys cannot maintain that, whether it be the level of lean, the level of athleticism, or potentially the drugs that they've been taking behind the scenes that you don't know about. So really important to keep in mind when we talk about how do I look like that person. You don't actually know everything that's going on in that person's life. And then let's talk through genetics. So there is a genetic component to this. And genetics, when I say genetic component, I mean this in a number of ways. Genetics play a part in how you look, how lean you can stay, how lean you can get, how easy it is to get lean, how many calories your body naturally needs to burn. all the way down to where you store body fat. Like some people just store more fat in certain areas than others, and you can't actually spot reduce fat. If you hold more fat on your legs and your thighs, you're just naturally holding more fat there. That's just where your body stores it. The only way to reduce it is to reduce your overall body fat. That is just the way that it works. And other people, maybe they don't hold body fat in their legs. They hold it somewhere else, their midsection, their arms. It's all genetic. So again, when we think about how do I look like that person, it's really going to come down to having the amount of muscle mass, having the level of leanness, maybe a little bit of a tan if you want the right image, or you want to portray whatever they're portraying in terms of images or photos or videos. Proper lighting can impact that, but it really comes down to amount of muscle mass you're holding, and how lean you actually are. And then there's little tweaks in terms of hydration and sodium intake and things like that to kind of appear lean but not flat, right? Those are all things that we can obviously talk about in another episode, but I want you to know the genetic component is really important, all the way down to where you store body fat, or even muscle insertions. Like, where do your muscles actually connect in your body in terms of the look? Some people have a natural V taper. Some people have, kind of the broader shoulders and narrower waist. And they have an illusion maybe of broader shoulders because of where the muscles actually insert. Those are all genetic components that you cannot actually control. What can you control? You can control how much muscle you're going to carry, how lean you're going to get. But again, we need to really ask ourselves, is that actually what good health is? Holding a ton of muscle mass, and I'm speaking, I think, for a lot of guys mostly, who see these images of these muscular, V taper, really strong, really lean. Is that actually healthy? And the answer is really no. That's actually not a good benchmark for health. So when we think about genetics too, it's just important to know that we can't compare to that person, because they don't even have the same muscle insertions. We're not ever going to look like them. We're going to look like us. We can look like the best versions of ourselves, but we can't look like that other person. We can work towards it. Maybe that's from more of a motivational standpoint. I want to look like this person. I want to have that V taper. I want to be leaner or have more muscle. That's great. But you can't necessarily compare apples to apples. It's not a fair comparison to compare to other people. And to no fault of your own, it's partly genetic, right? You're just not going to look like that person in terms of where your muscle insertions are, or where you hold body fat, or how easy it is to maintain being lean, or how lean you can actually get without feeling absolutely terrible. All those things are really important. The other thing is time spent training. So when we think about, not knowing everything that's actually going on when we compare to other people, you don't know if that person's been training for decades and you've been training for 6 months. It may look great on the surface. They may have this quick transformation. They lost a bunch of body fat. Now they're really strong. But you have to keep in mind, that person might have been training for decades before that actual transformation. For fitness results like that, a lot of times people will spend a long period of time bulking, building muscle mass before they actually lean out. And so that may be a culmination of a decade of training and building muscle before that person actually leans out and gets to that physique. So the time spent training is a really important thing to keep in mind. And again, this is where you can only compare to yourself. If you've only been training for 3 months, then you've only been training 3 months, and that's just where you are. And that's better than when you weren't training at all 3 months prior to that. So don't compare to other people. Don't think, how do I look like this person? Just think of how you can be your best self. You can use that stuff as a source of inspiration, but don't use it as your benchmark for good health or for what you're trying to look like. So I've talked about a couple of these areas, right? And how do you actually look like that person, right? If at the end of the day you're cool, I get it. I get what you're saying. I don't want to compare to other people. I want to just I just want to look better. I want to look more in shape, or I want to get in better shape. It really all boils down to what I would say are 3 things. 1, building more muscle mass. When people talk about for women, I want to look more tone. What is that? It's really, they've built a certain amount of muscle mass, number 1. Number 2, lower level of body fat. It's not necessarily that you're bigger or you look bigger. It's an illusion, right? When you're leaner, you probably weigh less than when you were maybe a little higher in body fat. But it's the illusion of looking bigger. The tapers start to build out. The density starts to show up a little bit more in terms of muscle fibers. So that's number 1, is building more muscle. Number 2, getting leaner. And number 3, I would say, is a majority of, or a mix really, when you're seeing it on social media or YouTube or wherever. It's the lighting, it's how tan you are, and it's angles, and it's hydration and sodium intake, right? So if you are doing a photo shoot, a lot of times the things you'll see on magazine covers, first of all, it's edited, but when it's not, it's the lighting, it's the right angles, and it's that person's properly hydrated in a sense that they look dense, like they're not bloated. They haven't leaned out but then like taken a bunch of like water intake and now they're like bloated. They're holding a bunch of sodium and they're holding like this just water weight. They've really leaned out and they've properly adjusted that sodium and water intake so that they have the illusion of being even bigger and stronger and leaner than they actually are. And then the right angles, the right lighting, the right colors are really what make that person when you see them on a social media video or whether you see them on a magazine cover. So if you're looking at any of these people as a source of inspiration, not as a source of comparison, which is what I would recommend, look for inspiration, not for someone to compare to. All of these factors matter. Body fat, muscle, water weight / hydration / angles, lighting, all of those things. So if you're thinking, how do I actually look? How do I look like this person who's my source of inspiration? How do I look more like them? You're going to have to build more muscle mass. You're going to have to lose body fat. It's really hard to do both at the same time. It's possible, but you're going to have to kind of focus on one or the other. If you don't have the muscle mass, probably start with that. Bulk up. You're going to gain more body fat. You're not going to look like them overnight. Build the muscle mass you need. Your body gets used to that. It becomes a natural state. That's your new norm, your new homeostasis. And then lean out. And then focus on, if you really want to look like that person for whether it's a photo shoot or whatever, it's going to be down to the hydration, the color, the lighting, the angles, getting a tan. All of those things are going to be important. So overall, don't compare to other people, compare to yourself, because that's all that really matters. You're the only one that you can compare to. And if you actually are looking at these people as a source of inspiration, you're going to have to build the muscle, lose the body fat, get the right hydration, angles, color, lighting, and you'll be able to get there. And I'll talk about those in other episodes as well. How can we actually build more muscle mass? How can we actually lean out without feeling terrible or jeopardizing our health? Because that's really important too. And maintaining that level of lean is not necessarily healthy. And it's not really possible for a lot of people. Some people are genetically gifted, but others, they're not able to do that. So we'll talk about those in other episodes, but just want to leave you with this. How do I make results like this person is a flawed premise. Don't start with comparing to other people. Comparison is the thief of joy, and only look to how you can better yourself. That's all that really matters, and you're the only one that you can compare to. So I hope you found this helpful, and I look forward to talking to you guys next Friday on the next episode of Fit Talk Fridays. Thanks.